Oh yeah, I have the book. It's a great book.
Oh, thank you.
Great book. Yeah, so and that's all in color, obviously. That's a one of my
Yeah,
faves.
I started out in black and white like my brother did, and wanted to go into color, and when I wasn't too sure about it. And finally, I switched over in 71 to slides, and then I switched back to black and white for some reason. I don't know why I did that. But then when I worked for the UP, everything was slides out there. So, and Santa Fe, same thing.
So after EL, you went to work for Conrail, and then I was reading your bio a little bit there.
Yeah, I was with Conrail still in the EL territory. I was a assistant passenger trainmaster in Hoboken, and then I was also the supervisor of operating rules for the Hoboken Division, they called it. So anything from Binghamton East, Erie side, and Lackawanna side was all mine.
So when Conrail made the decision to abandon the cutoff, what was the reaction and what was the state of affairs at that time when in the offices?
Luckily, I left in September of 78, and a decision was probably made around that time. But I'm not aware of what happened.
Because I guess what they did was they moved some stuff over to the Erie division. They took stuff off slowly, and then eventually, well, Chuck, you have the date. The official
Well,
abandonment was what year, Chuck? That was
well,
Last train ran to 79, I think.
yeah, well, but yeah, begin end of 78, but even right after Conrail, they took a lot of the freights off. They moved them. I don't know if they all moved to the Port Jervis line, but they significantly cut back, and then yeah, and end of 78. I think it was November 78 was the last freight. And then the official abandonment was in 81, and then the tracks come up in 84.
yeah.
Uh,
Then the
and then there's a long saga that follows after that. There's a long saga before that, but a long saga after that.
the quest to reactivate and to bring it back.
Which is, we'll see if it's around the corner or not.
So we're the Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee, but we're trying to restore Greendell Station. So I'm sure, obviously, you're familiar with Greendell.
Oh yeah, definitely. You'll see that in this slideshow.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was looking forward to this all week. This was this is looking forward to this presentation. Now you're in Arizona now, right?
Yeah, I live in the suburb of Phoenix. It's called Surprise, Arizona. It's on the BNSF or former Santa Fe Phoenix subdivision. So I'm right near the railroad. I can hear everything that goes on out here.
Okay. Yeah, so you have
So
that. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
that puts you on the north side of Phoenix, right?
Yeah, northwest.
Yeah, okay, because having spent 2 years in Tempe at Arizona State, but it's quite a difference. I mean, how different is the railroading, from East Coast to West Coast and just different, dealing with the weather and the extremes of it out west. Was that a big transition or a big adjustment?
Let me tell you about that. I left New Jersey. I left New Jersey and went to Wyoming in one fell swoop. And that's where I worked in Cheyenne. And I didn't know what cold was. I thought it was cold in Jersey in 77 to 78. That was nothing. 40 below was an average temperature in the wintertime, and it got up to 80 below with a wind chill factor. And we got snowed in one time. I went to work the Monday before Thanksgiving in 1979, and I didn't get home until Thanksgiving Day because we got 28 inches of snow with 12-foot drifts. And they wouldn't let any dispatchers go home. We had to stay in a hotel across the street from the office. And they brought one of the dining car crews over from the wreck train, and that was open 24 hours a day to feed us. So everybody was kind of smelling pretty ripe after a week, I can tell you that.
I'm just wondering how the hell they were able to get food into, but after a week being snowed in, I mean, you kind of start running out of frozen hot dogs and in the lakes, but no,
Yeah,
it's a different animal.
it was wild. We had, I went to work on a Saturday and a Sunday afternoons, and I had from Rawlins, Wyoming to Green River, Wyoming. Every train that went in there right after I sat down didn't leave for 3 days because they couldn't get air through any of the trains.
Frozen hoses and just, man. But
Nothing like that in the Poconos and on the Lackawanna.
Oh,
no, but I think that's the greatest thing about being on a train and traveling is that you do get to see the backside of many towns as opposed to the front side, and some of the less desirable, but you do get the unabridged picture. So just things, there's a big difference in how spread out, again, you're in Jersey and you're talking about a tower every dozen miles, every 20 miles, and you talk about going out west and you're talking about how far between division points and how far between is it, the traffic, the complexity. But I was like, just curious about how you make is there a really different feel about it?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was basically dispatching trolley cars back east. Out here, we're playing the real game out in the West, whether it be the UP or the Santa Fe, either one. I mean, the first day I worked in the UP, we were running 100 trains a day through Cheyenne. That's how busy it was. And
Wow.
I when I came out of the breaking in after the first day, I couldn't even find my car in the parking lot. My head was swimming so much. It was crazy. And the same in Santa Fe, they were just as bad. I worked down here in Winslow, Arizona as a dispatcher for about 4 months till they promoted me to Chicago. But that was a wild place there too. I worked everything from Berlin, New Mexico to Needles, California. There was 4 different dispatching jobs there. On the UP, I worked everything from Rawlins, Wyoming to Ogden, Utah, and as chief. I worked the chief for about 3 years. So it was wild.
When you were in Chicago, you worked as a power distributor?
Yeah, what I did is I had from Amarillo to Los Angeles and Richmond, California, and I had to keep track of 660 locomotives. And we
Oh,
worked in
wow.
shifts, 8-hour shifts, and you had to keep track of where all your locomotives were, and you worked with all the different roundhouses, setting up every freight train with the proper horsepower that goes with the tonnage and the length of the train. It was a very, very busy job.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So what do you do if like there's a mechanical failure? What do you, how do you like, how would you handle something like that then?
You steal a unit off another train in another either direction. It doesn't matter as long as you can get them help someplace. Um, give you an example. In Carlsbad, New Mexico, we used to get orders for potash going to Houston and what the heck was the other port? Galveston. And they'd order 800 freight cars at a time, 800 covered hoppers, and 40 locomotives. And you had to start gathering locomotives from all different places on the railroad to get them to Carlsbad to run these trains and get them out on time for a ship.
Wow.
It was pretty hectic.
Stressful, it sounds.
Yeah, my back ached a lot, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's
So just getting things lined up for the commuters coming through, coming out of Grove Street or something. That was easy because it was repetitious as opposed to something where you might get a rush or something that would, you'd have this tremendous call for locomotives, for cars, and how do you assemble this? And it might be like a bubble, and you still try and fit that in with your regularly scheduled
Oh, yeah,
manifests.
definitely. You know, at least with a commuter rush hour, you got it in the morning and the afternoon, or the evening rather, and in between, it's pretty quiet. When you're working on the freight railroads, it's running like that all the time. You're in high gear.
So, but it's crazy that you've gotten a familiar and you worked so many different aspects of the industry, from the heavy long haul to commuter territory, and I think that's part of what fascinates us, that you know, it's 4 foot 8.5 inches, and that's about the only thing that's the same all the way across the country. It's everything's got its own taste, its own flavor, and its own history.
Right.
So
Well, when I left to Santa Fe, I went to the FRA for 18 or 19 years. And that I did audits for train dispatchers all around the country, the FRA, as well as other things.
He's a cutoff guy. Chuck Walsh.
Yes. So we're gonna start right around 7:30, just because it will be on YouTube as well, and our Austin, I guess, is here. So Austin, are we all set to go for that aspect of it on the YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm getting that ready at the moment, and hopefully everything will run smoothly.
How
Perfect.
does that work, Austin? That's I mean, it would work. I mean, where it's something like a simulcast, I'll take it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just taking whatever feed is here and being able to send it to YouTube.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for setting that up. And Austin, if there's any questions, if you can send them to me in the messenger during the and I'll put them in the Zoom
Yeah.
here.
We have at least one other person from the EL. I see Sam Calciati. Do Rich and Sam, do you know each other by any
Oh,
chance?
heck yeah. We work together.
Yeah, we do.
Welcome, Sam. Thanks for joining tonight.
Okay, great.
So Rich, was there any is there any memory that sticks out as working on the cutoff or the Erie Lackawanna that you remember? Any anything in particular?
Oh, yeah. I worked midnight boot and line M&E combined job dispatching.
Yeah, because usually I go to Riccardi Brothers in Flanders.
We got to
They
mute
have,
the other people.
the, you know, the what you call it in there, they have every color they make. But you know what? Now with like Benjamin Moore and even, what's the other one? Sherman Williams.
Let's
Yeah.
check.
If you bring, like, say you like this color,
There we go.
you like your.
That's better.
I think I got her.
Put it under the
Thanks.
thing and it matches.
I'm going along and muting folks. I think you can unmute yourself, but
We'll just
I
have
can't
to
tell
keep-
who's talking, so I have to go down the list here.
Okay, we'll just have to keep an eye on that if that pops up again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
Well-
Rich. Yeah, any particular memory? The midnight you were starting to say?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I had the combined job of the M&E and the boot and line dispatcher and mainline side. And this is when everything was running on the cutoff. And we were trying to make clearances at Dover and where was the other location? Great Notch, to accommodate tri-levels and high cube cars. And basically, I had a single track from, well, let's see, Bell's Bridge was single track all the way to Port Morris, basically, double track from Fort.
Ashley, get your foot out of that, please.
But the well, actually, we had to go always single track all the way to Dover, because they were took one track at a time out of service at Dover to lower the track underneath some bridges. So I had single track all the way to Dover, and then double track from Dover to Denville, and then single track all the way down to Great Notch, and then double track from Great Notch in. So it was difficult to figure out where you're going to meet. You only had Greendell, Denville, and Lincoln Park to make a meet. That was it. And you're trying to put 5 trains eastbound and 3 trains westbound together. Kind of tough to do.
And those auto racks were bound for Mawa. Is that
Yeah, that would be train DN90. He had auto racks. Well, he would have them from Mawa, but 90 would have all the high cubes, and train BC2, which is Buffalo to Croxton 2, he had autos for Jersey City on the rear end and tri-levels.
Wow.
So you had to really be on the ball all the time working there. It was very busy. Plus, at the time, we used train sheets, and the train sheet was probably 4.5 to 5 feet long, and you had to slide it back and forth like this to read it, eastbound and westbound. So you had to try and keep track of things that way. I had nothing in front of me other than the CTC from Denville to Great Notch, and on the mainline side from the the upper Hackensack drawbridge up to Patterson. That was it. Everything else was all in your head up here.
Well, on that note, Chuck, it's 7:30. Do you want to start the meeting officially before we get back to Rich and his presentation?
Sure, let's do some housekeeping.
Sure.
In terms, I know I've been, a couple people I've muted, but I'm not sure if if they can unmute themselves, because I don't know if that's a permanent thing or just something that where because I didn't know when we were getting a little bit of background noise who was actually talking. What you can do is if there's a problem, certainly put something on the chat. So that's one thing you can do. We can you can communicate to us that way if for some reason you want to ask a question, for example. Okay, yeah, let's start it up, and then Keith, I can open the meeting, but the early slides are really for you, so that I'll just control the slides. So why don't you open the meeting, because it's actually you're the guy who is running the show here.
Okay, so yeah, if we could, can we put are we ready to go on the display to play it, or is that we're good to go here?
Can you see what do you see right now?
You can see it, yeah. I can see it here.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome to tonight's meeting, Saturday, March 9th, 2024, and this is the Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee General Meeting, and we're going to provide you with an update on Greendell Station, Andover service, New Jersey Transit, and New York City-Scranton service, the Amtrak study that's ongoing, and we have, of course, our special guest presenter, Rich Pennisi, tonight. So Rich will be presenting on his years with the Erie Lackawanna, and we'll turn it over to him after we take care of our stuff pertaining to the cutoff. Chuck?
Okay, hang on a second. Let me see if I get it to advance. There we go.
Okay, so just a brief update on some projects we have going on with Greendell. So we are trying to restore the train station in Greendell for any new people who are joining us tonight. So right now we're dealing with the roof, and we're going to replace the station, the roof. We've had quotes that have been solicited. We have 3 quotes, and we're going to be discussing at the next board meeting how to proceed with the roof. We would like to do it in its original style, and but might be cost prohibitive to do that. So we're looking at shingle roof style to do that, and we'll be discussing at the April board meeting. So we'll have an update on our Facebook pages as to how we're going to proceed with our roof. Also, there is a next to Greendell Station, there is a creamery, and the remnants of the creamery. The foundation is still there, and we were focusing on the station for all these years that we've been a group. So we'll be doing some brush clearing around the station, the creamery in April. We have ongoing maintenance that's going on around Greendell Station. We will be getting an electrical quote from JCP&L after our roof project is complete, after we get the shingle roof put on. We have Matt, who is working on a preservation plan for fundraising, and we will present our plan later this year. And we have Austin, who is in discussions with David Rush, a former DL&W employee, on creating some Greendell Station signs. So in the original style and font that the Lackawanna had. So those are some ongoing projects. A little bit more on the roof. We had a large donation who from one of our members would like to remain anonymous at this point in the amount of $25,000. And like I just mentioned, we have 3 quotes. 2 quotes were solicited by Steve K a couple of years ago, and we updated them more recently. And we need to clarify those quotes with the lower bids. So we'll be discussing that, and we have an issue with the cross beams that are under the roof. So we're just going to follow up and revise those numbers before the next board meeting, which we will be meeting in early April. And then we'll decide on a quote, and hopefully you'll see roofers and some pictures of the roof being replaced in the near future. We will be having a open house on June 8th. And if anybody's in the area and they want to stop by, it'll be from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And hopefully we have good weather that day, and you can feel free to walk around the grounds and, see the station. And hopefully there'll be a roof on at that point. We had our 2023 Santa at the Station event. This was our second event, the second year we've done this event. We had better weather this year. The first year we did it, it was quite rainy, and we didn't have a large turnout. We had a better turnout this year, and we anticipate this event to grow, and we look forward to doing it again later this year. And so check out the Greendell Station Museum page or the Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee page for an update when we select a date for this coming year, 2024. Austin, one of our board members, created a Greendell YouTube channel. So as of March 1st, 2024, the Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee has the Greendell Station Museum channel. Okay, and Austin will be moderating the channel and uploading content. And there's a link there, and that's the address. There is a Greendell Station band, a cover band that exists under the same name. And they actually use the tower as their logo, but as far as I know, the band is not in existence anymore. So if you go to YouTube and you search Greendell Station, you might come across the band. So just make sure you don't confuse our channel with the band. Chuck, you want to talk about this one, or do you want to?
Yeah, because I did some a little bit of research and behind the scenes on our page.
Okay,
as
so
of
Chuck,
this,
I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. As of this morning, we had 3,354 members in our Facebook group. And a little bit of metrics, 814 membership requests since April 1st of last year, of which we approved 805, and we don't decline that many, but every so often we have to, unfortunately, and you can see the 19 people have been blocked as well since that time, and 832 requests have been reviewed. I've added this note here because I see over a period of time lots of people being invited by members, and this is a great thing, but the problem is that the person who's being invited, who's not a member, has to accept. And I'd say, and I don't know any numbers on this, but I would hazard probably 90% or more of the invitees do not accept for whatever reason. They don't see the invitation. They don't want to join for whatever reason. But just to let you know, if you invite someone, you really need to let them know, because I guess it comes up on the timeline and then it's gone. And so what we do is after a week, I send, usually it's me, send a reminder. And then after 2 weeks, it's our policy to delete them, because right now I have 14 invitations which are sitting there, and they're already past a week. So probably within the next week, they'll be deleted, just because there's no action being taken. That same number will be there most likely. Unfortunately, we'd love to have more members, but it's up to the people. They have to accept. We can't designate members, in other words. So just a little bit to let you know that even the Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee is by far the largest Cutoff Facebook page. There are other pages. There is the Lackawanna Cutoff page, which I think I started. Not really sure, but it's a public page and it has 3,000 followers. They're not members, but followers. Then there's another page which we didn't have anything to do with this. In fact, it may actually predate all of us. And that was started by James Ganley. I think he lives in nearby Hope Township up here, and he has 813 members as of this, I think yesterday it was. Also, I administer the North Jersey Rail Commuter Association. That's a group I've been with since the mid-'80s, and not as a Facebook page, but actually I created a Facebook page, at least good 10 years ago. Then, as you know, Greendell Station itself has its own Facebook page, and that's administered. I don't usually get involved with that. So Keith, I think you and the other guys probably administer that. And then finally, there is and I can't find this, so it may have been deleted, but there was a I don't know what it was called, Stop the Cutoff or something like that, I'll call it an opponent page. And that has since disappeared. I can't find it, so I don't know if it even exists at this point. So just FYI. Okay, I give you a map of the cutoff because we're going to be talking a bit about it. I'll point out Lake Lackawanna because we'll talk about that, Andover, Roseville Tunnel. Those are the things we'll be in the New Jersey Transit portion be concentrating on, because that's where the New Jersey Transit project is. So first of all, work restarted in 2023 after 11 years of inactivity. That was a long 11 years, I'll tell you that. So as of 2012, a little over 4 miles has been laid on the cutoff in 3 disconnected sections. To review the Hudson Farm work, please, if you're not muted, please mute your microphone. Okay, thanks. Hudson Farm, which was probably 8 or 9 years worth of delays, that work is finally complete. The shortening of the tunnel, Roseville Tunnel, to below 1,000 feet to abrogate the need for a ventilation shaft, that work is complete. The Colby Cut and east of the tunnel rockfall mitigation project is also complete. So that's done. So basically now all the work that's being done is in Roseville Tunnel. They're in the process of putting a lining in, and I was in there yesterday, not in the tunnel, but actually talking to my friend there in the trailer at Andover, and he was showing me they have, I guess they must do it by some sort of sonic type of I don't know, instrumentation, but he was showing me there are places where they've inserted or basically shot into like between crevices and such, like 6 or 7 feet worth of concrete into the tunnel lining, and the concrete lining is growing as we speak every day almost. And at some point, probably I think in April, they will put a lining which will be the impermeable barrier for water, and then they will put more concrete on top of that. So that is going to go through the rest of this year. I mean, they're saying that they're going to be done probably by the end of this year, but that'll also include The other projects, which are the lighting, there will be a walkway in there. There will be a communication and security system, a closed circuit television type of thing. And then at well, I guess in the next page, we'll get into that, where they'll actually lay the track bed without tracks, however, and that will be only leaving about 6 to 8 inches of area where ballast will be applied by New Jersey Transit when they actually put the tracks down, when they put the ties down, which at this point, we're thinking 2026. There's some question marks here as whether this is slipping to somehow, in a sense, match the Amtrak schedule. We don't know. I'm just getting mixed messages about that. So I can't be really firm as to what the deadline, or I would say the deadline, but actually the timelines are on that. So New Jersey Transit being a little bit vague on that, and I'm getting scuttlebutt back that may be slipping. We'll see. I don't know. So there's still some clearing that has to be done from Lake Lackawanna to the tunnel. That's about the only section at this point, except for a little bit around the grade crossing in, I guess that's considered a pack on there that needs to be done. A project which should not be done, and that's the relaying of Port Morris Y, and then the need to actually install the permanent connection at UN, which is the old Port Morris Junction, and the ties, the ties to set up for the switch there is been sitting in the weeds for over 10 years now. Yes, grade crossing, that's about 1.5 miles west of Port Morris Junction. They'll be putting up a communications tower over the tunnel. That's been added into the project. The Andover site, they won't be really working on that until very late in the project. In other words, they don't want the station to actually be there until it's basically service is ready to open. And they've also added on, they're going to do rock fall mitigation on Hill Cut. I'll show you that in the distance. That's the cut that's just east of the station at Andover. And opening a service, well, at least the last we heard was 2027 for Andover service, but not sure. I'm going to leave that as an open question. We'll have to see, to be determined at this point, whether it's going to slip to 28 or not. Okay, this is Hudson Farm. I took this photo yesterday. There was a red barn right in the middle of this. This is all, it's gone. The pipe has been replaced. And there you see the pipe goes underneath the road there, or up, well, driveway actually. And this is the project that held up Andover service, or the Andover project, for about 9 years. Also taken yesterday, this is looking from Roseville Road overpass towards the tunnel. It was late in the day, unfortunately, so you can't really see the tunnel so much. But the thing is that the tunnel actually has this shroud or a covering, so you can't actually see into it anyway. And this is in the opposite direction, looking towards Andover. Just at the end of where the curve begins is where Hill Cut starts, and that's where they're going to be doing more rockfall mitigation, but that's at this point another year or two away, I would say. And this is a shot from, to give you an idea how much in the way of clearing they had to do. This is a shot from 2012. My daughter standing over the tunnel. This part where she is standing right now does not exist anymore. This was blasted away. 9,000 tons of material was removed in the blasting. 190 truckloads of rock were taken away. And that's what it looks like actually a year ago now, but this is basically what it looks like now with all the trees gone. So now let's go on to Amtrak, and we'll use their map here. And you'll see that both the Morristown line and the Montclair or the Montclair Boonton line are highlighted here because trains are going to be going in on both routes. So to review Amtrak, we go back to 2021. We have the so-called infrastructure bill, which provides 18 billion, a little over 18 billion for new Amtrak corridor RD projects. In 2023, March of 2023, PennDOT applies for the New York to Scranton service with the Pennsylvania Northeast Regional Railroad Authority and New Jersey Transit as co-applicants. During the week of December 8th of this, actually last year, 2023, the FRA designated 69 of the 95 corridor ID projects that had applied to the program, and they moved into what is called Step 1, and in doing so, they each received or should have received a grant of $500,000. Now, this is a three-step process, but it's actually more complicated than that. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'll just keep it high level. Step 1 is basically where you build your corridor ID team. Now, the thing is that the Scranton guys have had they've had their team for about 30 some odd years, so they're ahead of the game on this. Many of these corridors are just basically starting from scratch, more or less. They applied with a concept. The concept was basically approved by the FRA, and now they move to Step 1, and now they start building their team. Really, where I'll say the big work gets done is in Step 2, which is the preparation, what they call a service development plan. And that's really the service development plan is what really gets you either the big money or it doesn't. It's what it comes down to. And that there are some costs that would be associated with that, which I'll get into briefly in a moment. And the actual breakdown of funding on that is 90% from the feds and 10% has to be matched from the states. And then Step 3 is the implementation of the service development plan. The only thing is with that is that it's a lot more than just like turning a switch. It's basically getting funding, doing the preliminary engineering, the final engineering, and all that. So, and one thing that's important to keep in mind for Step 3 is that any project that gets into Step 3 probably is going to go all the way, because they're basically building a wall there between Step 2 and Step 3. FRA is. They're not probably going to be permitting just any project to get into Step 3. So a little bit about the actual Amtrak project itself. It'll be 3 round trips daily at 2 hours and 50 minutes if you go the full trip between New York Penn Station and
there'll be 3 round trips daily at 2 hours and 50 minutes if you go the full between.
Say, Austin, I think we're getting feedback. I'm not sure if that's what's causing the problem. I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, Joseph Phelan, if you could just mute your mic.
Yeah, so if you're on, okay, thank you. Oh, I'm still hearing it.
It's Joe Phelan. Yeah, we're gonna have to mute him, I think.
If you're on. Okay, thank you.
Okay. 3 round trips daily, $250 if you go all the way between New York Penn and Scranton. Stops will be at North Broad Street, Montclair Boonton line, or Morristown if the train goes up and down the Morristown line. Dover, Blairstown, East Stroudsburg, Mount Pocono, and Scranton. And just an FYI, the Blairstown Township Committee just adopted a resolution of support back in mid-January. So here's what we expect in terms of timelines: 1 to 2 years for additional study and engineering, 3 years for construction. If all this goes according to Hoyle, well, we're looking at the possibility of service in late 2028. What does it entail? Well, it'll be upgrade of trackage in Pennsylvania to FRA Class 4. It's currently mostly either FRA Class 2 or 3. So that would allow 79. Not a lot of 79-mile-an-hour running. That would be probably mostly on top of the mountain, but and some like Antelope and such, but it'll be isolated. On the cutoff, though, it'd be interesting. We're looking at the 21 miles of the cutoff west of Andover to the bridge over the Delaware. possibly being upgraded to FRA Class 6, which is 110 mile an hour. And the Port Morris to Andover section, which is New Jersey Transit, will either be 70 or 79. We don't know yet. It will be Class 4, so technically it would be 79, but we don't know if that'll be permitted or not. Then there's going to be the rehab of the two viaducts, and then positive train control, which is a big deal. And then there will be new train sets. We hope they will be ready in time for the service, the Aero train sets for Amtrak. There we go. So to get to the total cost. Now, this is a little bit of a shocker, but it is what it is. Total cost is being estimated between, for the project, this is New York City to Scranton, everything included, including train sets and everything, anywhere between 800 million and 1.2 billion. As of this point, Pennsylvania has committed 125 million for its match, which basically is a 20% match for 80%. So that means that their match alone, I'm gonna say guarantees, but it guarantees $625 million in terms of total funding. However, if you have a project, let's say that's 1 billion, that means that New Jersey obviously is going to have to contribute. So that we're talking about, let's say in that theoretical scenario, New Jersey would have to contribute 75 million. So it would be, it's going to be a range from New Jersey. It would be either between 35 and 115, depending on where it falls in that range of 800 to 1.2. The good news, there is a lot of good news associated with this. We're hearing, and this was actually, I would say, more than a rumor, because Congressman Cartwright actually said this. So I don't think he would say this publicly, or it wouldn't be disseminated publicly if it weren't, at least he hadn't heard, or it hasn't been heard from I will say a pretty reliable source, that the project is either in the top 5 or the top 3 of FRA's projects, the corridor ID projects. And we know that basically step 1 and probably much of step 2 has already been completed because of the Amtrak study that was done. And in fact, it was the only corridor to receive an Amtrak study. So that's a very interesting leg up that we have on the other corridors that are competing for the money. It's also the only new corridor ID project in New Jersey. It's also the only all publicly owned corridor in the corridor ID program. There won't be any Class 1 freight railroads such as CSX or NS involved, and then there's no freight traffic on the cutoff that is anticipated, although there will be local freight both east and west of the cutoff. And this is the front page of the Amtrak study that was done. Was released in March of 23, just in time to be submitted with the application to FRA. And here's the schedule, proposed schedule at this point: 3 westbound and 3 eastbound trains. They at least at this point, because of the slots that are limited going into Penn Station, New York, they're not in the middle of rush hour for the most part, but at this point, they are what they are. So, and with Gateway, that this will become less of an issue as we go down, in time. But at the beginning, at least, you can run trains, because people are saying, "Oh, you can't run into New York; you have to run to Hoboken." No, you can run into New York. It's possible. But as you can see, also they're routing such that they will either go Morristown or the Montclair Boonton line, depending on the train. And just to talk quickly about the YouTube channel for the Lackawanna Cutoff, I'm in the process of editing part 38, which is an interview with the late Mike Del Vecchio, who passed away last August. I've had several episodes that have been in between, so that's the reason why I'm only getting to Mike's interview now. We have some more that I'm tentatively lined up. The 39, there would be UFOs on the cutoff. Part 40 will be the Rockaway Valley, which is a railroad that's always kind of fascinated me, and we're doing that as a comparison to the cutoff, where the the cutoff was basically spare no money in terms of building it, and the Rockaway Valley was done as about as cheap as you can imagine. And then in part 41, we'll see if this will turn out with the Conrail and the cutoff, and then after that, we'll see. See what other episodes I can line up over time. That's more than enough to right there with all that. And then I'm anticipating doing an update, which is a separate category of videos on both Amtrak and New Jersey Transit, what's in store in 24. So, Rich, do I need to introduce you, or do you, I guess I should, right? Or Keith, do you want to do the introduction?
Either me or you. Yeah, that's fine. Also, but Chuck, one other quick thing. So any updates? So we're meeting tonight, obviously, via Zoom and our YouTube channel. If there's any updates after this meeting going over through the summer and into the later part of the year, be sure to check out the Facebook pages for any updates pertaining to the cutoff. So Chuck is on top of it with his posts and his videos, and so we usually do these public meetings about twice a year. So in the stretch that we don't meet, you can always check the Facebook page out for updates. So now it's on to the entertainment portion of the show, and Rich Pennisi, we appreciate you signing in. Rich is in Arizona now, but Rich worked for the Erie Lackawanna from 1967 to 76 as a ticket agent, freight agent, towerman, and train dispatcher. Then Rich worked for Conrail from 76 to 78. Rich was the Assistant Passenger Trainmaster in Hoboken, then Supervisor of Operating Rules for the Hoboken Division. Then Rich went on to the Union Pacific in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and that's where Rich was a dispatcher, Assistant Chief Train Dispatcher for 11 years. Rich then went to work for the UP and for the Santa Fe as a train dispatcher in Winslow, Arizona, and as a power distributor in Chicago for 3 years. Following that, Rich worked for the FRA as an operating practices safety inspector for 19 years. And now Rich is in Surprise, Arizona. So we thank you for joining us. And Rich, I'm going to turn it over to you, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate it. I guess you got to.
Yeah, I got to give you the, I did this before. Let's see if I can give it over to you. Multiple participants. Okay.
If anybody has any questions during the presentation, be sure to pop them into the chat, and we'll be monitoring it. So so we don't interrupt Rich during the presentation. We'll take little breaks every, maybe 20 minutes. So be sure to put them in the chat. Okay. Actually, Chuck, we have a question for you, but we'll about the planning of both viaducts. Is Amtrak going to do that? But I don't know if you want to answer that now or towards the end, Chuck, or quickly answer it, or I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was Edward Holden.
Let's save that. I mean, if there
Okay.
are any other questions,
Yep,
we
we'll
can
get to that
those.
question, Edward.
Now, Rich, let me see if.
Okay, now we need to share screen.
Okay, let me.
And let's
Oh,
see here.
you know, look, we see your screen. At least I do.
Okay, can you see this in full screen now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
we do.
Here we go. And DL&W and EL's New Jersey Cutoff, Port Morris, New Jersey to Slateford Junction, Pennsylvania, with a quick peek at a few other locations. Let's go back here. This is the model board for Port Morris Tower. This is for the interlocking machine. There were 4 tracks coming into Port Morris. This would be track 3 out here in black tape. That means that track was out of service. That was come down around, I guess, just before the merger or just after the merger. This is track 1 going straight out through here. This would be track 2. Whoops, not too good steady here. This would be called a slow track right here, and this is the entrances to the yard at the time. And this is the line to Washington and Phillipsburg, New Jersey, also line to Newton cutting off over here. Anything in black tape like this is track that's been removed. Just to give you an idea. Let's take a little closer look at each end of the panel here. Here's the east end again, showing you where Hoboken Station is. And then we'll take another look at what the west end of the panels look like. This section here this is what they call the slow track right here. It used to extend all the way out here to this signal here. All of this was removed, and you'll see some photographs that I have of this as we get on further into the show. This is the Sussex branch right here going to Newton and to Branchville, and the old road going to Washington this way in Phillipsburg. HT stands for hand throw crossovers that go into the yard. And then the signals are numbered and the switches are numbered as well. Here we are in Port Morris. This is, let's see, what are we looking at? This is a John H. Riley photograph taken on the September 25th, 1960. This is a westbound freight of 4 FTs coming by Port Morris Tower and another train switching cars out in the yard here. This is a westbound train. And if you notice right here, there are 2 cabooses that are deadheading westbound, probably going to Scranton. At the time, I'm sure these were assigned cabooses to crews, and the crews were probably deadheading back to Scranton. This is another picture of a freight a little later on. This is one of my photographs. This would be around 1967. This is a CS or HS9 coming westbound, right at the same location at the signal bridge. And this is on top of the signal bridge. A little story goes with this. The towerman at Port Morris was a real comedian, and he thought it would be real funny to blow the emergency whistle about the time I took this photograph. And it was a very sharp, shrill whistle about 4 feet from where I was standing on top of the bridge, and he hit that and I almost fell off the bridge. But this is CS9 coming up at this particular shot right here. This train right here is a special that ran in July of 1975. This was the C&O Railroad doing an inspection, possibly taking over parts of the Erie Lackawanna instead of going into Conrail. That failed for whatever reason. And this is the train westbound. You can notice here that the fireman's giving a nice wave here to us as they went by. And here's the going away shot. The last 2 cars were C&O cars. I think this was an old diner, if I'm not mistaken. And this was their inspection car from the rear, theater style.
Yeah. Well,
there's another CS9 coming westbound now in a little later date with the Erie Lackawanna SDP 45 and the U25B. We look all the way back toward the end of the train. There's a coach here going up to Scranton. I don't know if it was going up to Scrap or what it was going to. And then the caboose is right behind that. This is on track 1 going westbound. This is an eastbound. This was SC2 back in 1967 at Port Morris. He just arrived. He was going to make a pickup here of these cars off the slow track. 8454 is my favorite locomotive. In fact, I even have that as my license plate number here in Arizona. And this one is New York 98 coming eastbound into Port Morris, same location. This switch right here is off the slow going into the yard. This is the slow track. This would be track 2 eastbound going toward Dover. Now, this I've taken from, some of you may have seen Bill Shepard's book. He had a track diagram book he put out right after Conrail, or before Conrail. The reason I did this is train 1007 at the time, this is 1967, used to come westbound on track 1 like this from Dover, make a station stop at Opakon, go out this way out to the Washington, Maine, toward Washington. Whoops, went too far. Shoot. I can't get back on this. Well, anyhow, what I was going to try and show you is how the train 1007 got to Port Morris. It had to back all the way down, shoving the train to Port Morris, pull forward and pull into the yard, go around the Y track at Port Morris, and then proceed east at going to Dover. This is the train on the Y right now, shoving out toward track 2 to proceed east. Oh, wait a minute. I think I can get back to this. There we are. Okay, the train would shove back this way, same way it came up. Stop right here at this signal, back up into the yard, go around the Y track, pull forward on track 2, and then go east to Dover as train X110. Here's the rest of the train still shoving it west out onto the Y track. And the next shot shows the train on track 2 with train PN98 sitting here on the slow track. And now the train has been turned so that the locomotive is facing the right direction, and they're heading back down to Dover. This is what was called the P-Burger, a train that ran from Phillipsburg to Port Morris every day, bringing eastbound cars and westbound cars to the yard for pickups. And this is a RS2 and an RS3 at the time, working the train, making a set out. This would be 1966, 67. And this is another P-Burger, as it was called, with 3 units on it. But what stands out in this photograph is the 1264 was the first locomotive my brother and I saw at GP7 that was repainted in the new maroon and gray painting scheme instead of the Erie Lackawanna black and yellow freight scheme. So this was a big thing for a kid 14 years old to take a picture of something like this. So I had to take a close-up. This is on the same signal bridge again. This is in 1968, and eastbound freight on the track 2 right here. This is the slow track, as I've been talking about, and this is the switch that goes in toward the Y to go around this way to come back out. This would be main track 1 right here. The Jeep here was the towerman's car, and the Ford here was my brother or my car. We both had a 64 Ford. Port Morris again, eastbound. This is New York 100. This is around 1974. New York 100 was one of our premier piggyback trains. There was 2 sections, first and second. And this is the P-Burger, just to show how things changed. This was under Erie Lackawanna. This is in 1971. At the time, we were still using RS3s and RS2s on the P-Burger. The next shot is after Conrail with some Erie Lackawanna GP7s, but now they're Conrail. Same location. This right here is the entrance into the yard off the slow track. That's the signal to come out of the yard. Again, we're still at Port Morris. This is the slow track right here, and this is the lead going into the yard. This is track 2. This is a train called PN98, stopped here. Westbound, this is train CS9 coming by. And over here on the right-hand side is the P-Burger coming in to make a set out into the yard. So this happened fairly reasonably on a regular basis. in the afternoons, all three trains could possibly be there together at the same time. And this is after Derico, as some D&H engines were running on PN 98, just to show the different types of locomotives that you'd see at Port Morris. This right here is on January 3rd, 1972. This is the first joint Erie Lackawanna train, ES 99, running from Elizabethport to Scranton. Has 3 units on it on this particular day. This is the car inspectors here inspecting the train as it rolls by, giving them a roll-by inspection. And this train was going to Scranton. This is on track 2, and he'll go all the way across the cutoff. That was my brother's photo. This is my photo. This is SE 98, the eastbound counterpart. Within the first week of operation, I couldn't make it there for the first day. And this is the SE 98 now going to Chester Junction to go down on the CNJ. And this is another ES 99 at Port Morris. Now this is, I told you earlier about a signal and a switch that was taken up, and this slow used to extend all the way out here. This is the location I was talking about on the model board. This is train HS, what is this? It'd be... Yeah, can't remember if it's HS9 or something. Anyway, with F3 units on it. I'm standing on a signal box right here. The next picture is the 2 guys that were with me. This is Bill Strohmeyer up on a signal up here. That's my brother down below. And the same train going to Westport Morris, where you go onto the single track on the cutoff.
Say, Rich, I hate to interrupt you, but I have to mention this. Just literally, I'd say maybe 150 feet in front of the locomotive is where the County Road 602 grade crossing will be.
Oh, really?
It's right there. Yep.
Wow.
And the old roads, the old 602 is literally just below us here, because you can see the like a little bit of a fence right at the very bottom here. The
Yes.
roadway is right underneath there. So but that's the old one that's abandoned, but the grade crossing would be just in front of you.
Oh boy. Interesting. And this again is at the same location where the slow track was taken out, just to show you how it's changed. And this is a CS9 heading westbound with 3 RS3s. RS3s and RS2s, I should say. Am I going too fast here, Chuck?
No, well, that's your.
I think you're
You're
good.
doing fine.
Okay. Okay, this is to show you what the cutoff actually looks like on a CTC machine. This is main track 1. This is main track 2. You go to single track here at this location. This is Greendell here, right, with a passing siding. This used to be a dual switches right here in the middle of the siding. The siding was twice as long as it was at the time of this photograph. They've removed those switches and the signals, so now it's just a shorter siding here. Greendell, Blairstown sits right about out in this area here, and this is East Slayford or West Slayford Junction. This was controlled from Stroudsburg Tower right here. That's, you see here on these switches here, rusty rail on these 2 switches. That means that there was not enough traffic to keep the rust off the rails out here. So what the railroad finally decided to do is anytime a westbound went by, it always went through the siding to keep the rust off. And the eastbound trains always held the main track, keep the rust off that way.
Say, Rich, can you, you may already plan this, to talk about this, but there actually was almost like a dark, I'm gonna call it dark area, but it was a place where you didn't know exactly where the train was, you just knew it was in there someplace. Can you
Right
maybe,
here where I got that little arrow right now,
okay,
that was the dark area. This is a train that's just coming off the single track onto the double track at Westport Morris. This is New York 100. He's eastbound. This is train ES 99 at the west end of the double track going onto the single track onto the cutoff. 3061 and an SD 45 behind EL. Notice that we're not worrying about weeds at this time. At the same location, this is an eastbound coming off the single track to go onto the double track to Port Morris. This is SE 98, 3069 and an SD 45. I'm thinking this is near Lake Lackawanna, but you guys will know better than I do. This is an FA1 on CS9 or HS9, whatever it was at the time, going westbound. I tried to get up there to get a better location shot, but this is the best I could do at the time.
I think you're right, Rich, I think this is like a Lackawanna.
Okay. I forget, I've been gone close to 50 years.
That's pretty good if you, if you remember that.
And this is just west of that last location. This is HB1, which was the empty train going west to Buffalo to make the merge on time. HB meaning Hoboken to Buffalo. Two big GEs on there. U-36s. And this is just east of the tunnels. ES 99 coming with 3 units, a CNJ unit and 2 EL units. And you can see my car is way down here. I don't remember what this road was here. Maybe you guys know this one.
That's Roseville Road,
Roseville Road, okay.
yeah.
Now this, I bought this photograph. I don't know who the photographer was, and I don't know what the date was, but this picture just blew me away. Here's the cutoff is still double track, so this is prior to 1958 or so, with an ABA F3 set and a heavyweight train, probably the Lackawanna Limited coming eastbound.
That would probably be, well, it'd have to be pre-Phoebe Snow, so this would be like
48, 49,
yeah,
somewhere thereabouts, maybe even earlier than that. And here's when it's single track now. You can see where the other track's been taken out. And this is prior to the merger. This is like September 25th, 1960 of this eastbound freight with 4 FT locomotives. Just barely see the tunnel here. And this is a John Riley photograph. Now this happened in February 20, these photographs are February 23rd, 1971. CS9 had picked up the M&E steam engine, the RS1 rather, and they were taking it to Scranton for some wheel work when it derailed at this location. Here's the tunnel is way back in here. You can just barely see it at the top of the photo here. We had to have an EL work train come out to re-rail the locomotive and change out a wheel set too.
That was the same shot that Chuck had earlier when he was, right, Chuck? You had a shot of the, from that bridge before?
Yes.
right, that's also Roseville Road that we're
Yeah,
on right
yeah,
here.
it loops around, yeah.
And there's a little close up. There's a guy actually working right here. If you can just barely see him in here. This is the trainmaster, Eddie Nolan. And this is the other end of the work train. And there's your Roseville Road. And here's the same spot a little bit later on. Trees are starting to grow up. And you can see the tunnel right back here. And this is a CS9 westbound.
And this is very wet right now. Because of the drainage ditches being blocked and such. And people, I've heard people say, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna have flooding problems." Well, look at it; it's dry as a bone, and they're using 1910 technology to do that. So if it's just going to be a matter of returning the drainage ditches to their original functionality. So you see, like here, there's no issue. But right now, one of the photos I showed you was quite a bit of water, but that won't be an issue in the future.
And this is about 1,000 feet west of Roseville Tunnel at a cut here. This train here ran for probably right after the merger started. It was called a Shopper Special for Christmas time. Would run from Scranton to Hoboken as a one train. And it was getting bigger and bigger every year. This is 1967, December 9th, 1967. This is an 18-car train of shoppers going from Scranton to New York. After they came back from New York and were ready to go home, they had 3 trains to choose from at the time. In earlier years, they had 3 trains. But on this particular year, they needed to have the train run by itself westbound. It's 18 cars long, and then I'll show you some shots of the train. This right here is a dining car on here. It was the only one on there for 18 cars, so I don't think they fed everybody.
And Rich, this is Hill Cut, so this is going to be another part of the right-of-way that's going to see rockfall mitigation. The shots you were showing of Roseville Tunnel was Colby Cut, and that work has already been done, so that's over with. But this will be part of the project for the Andover station, which is actually right around the curve because I think we're facing westbound, correct?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so it's right around the curve where the station in Andover would be. But this cut area will have to undergo rockfall mitigation.
Well, this train, they ran out of streamlined equipment, and the best thing they could do was put 4 Erie steel wells on her rear end.
They must be making a lot of noise. I mean, that was a heavy train to be pulling.
Oh, he was roaring. You could hear him coming from way, way out there. This is in Andover, Huntsville. This is the Lehigh and Hudson River main line right here, and this is a westbound going towards Scranton. This is my brother's photograph. This is east of Greendell, just a little ways. This is a train TC4 with a GP35 and an SDP 45. And these cars here are 2 Ford Mawa cars. TC4 used to get cars, leftover cars, you might say, that didn't make it on train DN90. And he would bring these into Croxton and then bring them back out on another train out to Mawa. And this is at Greendell coming toward the east end. You can see double track here. This is New York 100. I used to love to be up in Sussex County with these little poplar trees or whatever they were called. They always look great in a photograph. And this is in 1960 again. This is a John Riley photograph. Oops, sorry about that. 3 trainmasters coming down what would be the track 2 here. I don't know why it's on track 2 instead of track 1. This must have been after they single tracked the line. And this is when they were cutting the siding in half. instead of being the long siding that it once was. You can see here that they're taking out the crossovers, universal crossovers. And this is the Phoebe Snow coming westbound. Of course, at Greendell. This is also the west end of Greendell now, and this is a business car special going westbound, 1969. And the rear end as it went by.
That bungalow, the signal bungalow there, that's still there, believe it or not,
Oh,
in the weeds. And part of the signal, they just, I guess Conrail just cut it and left it in the weeds. So the face of the signal mast, we have one of them at the Greendell Station now. It was just in the weeds. I walked over there one day. They just cut it and left it.
wow. And this is EL train number 6, the Lake Cities. Should have been here about 6:45 or so, 7 o'clock in the morning, going eastbound. Roof still needs some work back then too.
Always a working project.
Westbound ES 99 at Greendell. And you're going to see some photographs here. I stood on this concrete awning, you might say, to get these photographs. It was hard to get up there. My brother had to boost me up. There's another SE 98 at the east end of Greendell.
That's a track heater there, is it not, Rich?
Yes, it is. That's the switch heater.
Switch heater.
And they use propane gas.
Was that controlled from UN Tower?
Yes, it was.
Ah.
Yes, it was. Another SE 98 eastbound. This is the Red Baron. If everybody knows what that was, this is when they first come out with their bankrupt red paint job. And had some piggybacks on it this particular day. In the away shot. And if you look at the away shot, there's a westbound coming up here. That'd probably be ES 99 that he was meeting.
That train came out of Elizabethport, Rich.
Yes, that is correct.
Did they make it to Scranton in one crew make it to Scranton, or did they
Mostly they did, yes.
okay.
There were some days when it didn't, but the majority of the time it did make it. The Jersey Central crews had one side of the job and the EL crews had the other side. And this is where I was standing on that archway over the door in the tower. This is an eastbound, let's see, this was a detour move. There had been some kind of a derailment on the Delaware Division between Port Jervis and Binghamton, and trains were rerouted through Scranton via the Cutoff. And I'm at the same spot for this one too. This was New York 74. This is meat reefers on the head end here. And this is a export locomotives going eastbound from Scranton to Hoboken to make a ship. And it was a special train. And that's my wife over there. This was in 1974.
Now, Rich, you're probably aware that bridge no longer exists, or maybe you don't.
Yeah, I heard that they it doesn't. I guess that's just another road crossing now, isn't it?
It would be, yeah, for Amtrak, however, not New Jersey Transit.
Right.
And the signal bridge is in Phillipsburg, believe it or not, at the
It
museum
is.
there.
Wow.
It's on the ground though, I think, right, in
Right, yeah,
pieces.
it's on the ground, but the museum in Phillipsburg, somebody grabbed it before we were a group, and they're preserving it. I mean, it's in good hands, but it's in Phillipsburg now.
This is east of Johnsonburg, or yeah, it's east of Johnsonburg, New York 100. Another one of the detour trains in the early 70s. This is in December of 1970, a westbound business car train. The rear car is a D&H business car. And there's Johnsonburg Station and, of course, the creamery. That's the outhouse, I think.
So Keith, they looks like they have those original tiles on Johnsonburg still there. That's amazing. On the
Yes.
roof.
Yes, looking at the roof.
And they're
And
red.
that's-
They're red, not green, or whatever color that would be. Reddish.
Well,
Is there anything left of that creamery there?
Today, no.
no, that's gone.
Roger.
No, there's nothing there now. There's only the floor of the station now, if you can find it.
The reason I started the group, the Lackawanna Cutoff Historical Committee, was after this station was knocked out, was torn down by NJDOT. I guess it was what, in 2010 or 11 they knocked it down, Chuck? I forget the year.
I think it was don't quote me. I thought it was a little bit earlier, maybe 2006, 7. But
Yeah.
it was in that time frame. Yeah.
So I was
It-
afraid Greendell would be next, because Blairstown is kind of safe. It's being used as a local
It wa-
business.
It was
cross-
a radio. Blairstown was a radio station for a while in the late
Yes.
60s and early 70s.
Into the 90s, certainly. I think even the early 2000s, it was still a radio station. It's now a CrossFit facility.
Ha! There's the westbound going away. That's the Lackawanna Limited eastbound at Blairstown in 1949. All prior to the Phoebe Snow. You can see one of the new streamlined cars right ahead of this. This is Blairstown again. This is train 41, the mail train. This is 1963. There's Bob Pennisi photo. And this is one of my photos. This is from a little 127 negative I took when I was about 14. This is train 40, the Pocono Express coming in. These guys are going to get the mail right here. And this is, I ran down to that overhead bridge to get this shot. You can see all the head end that was on there, all the express cars and whatever.
Yeah, this is Heller Hill Road for, I see Joe Cocaro is on the call. This is where this is from. You would recognize that, Joe.
And there's the going away shot. Had 2 coaches, a diner, and then this is usually the deadheads ran in this car here. Anybody was an employee, they kind of segregated them from the public, let them ride in their own car. Used to be a lot of people that commuted from Scranton down to Hoboken to go to work.
That's an interesting question, Rich. I mean, we think of the commuter district as ending maybe at Dover or now maybe Netcom, but there were commuters. We know there were commuters from Blairstown. I heard East Stroudsburg. I guess Scranton, any other places that you know of off the top of your head that on the line, west of where you would think, no, you wouldn't see commuters, but there were.
That's probably just about it.
That's about it.
I know when I was a young boy, probably around 8 or 10, my mother used to shop down in Newark, and we would ride the 936 out of Dover, which was the Merchants Limited, and you could ride that on a commuter ticket. That was the only mainline train you could ride east on from Dover. And I was fascinated with the streamlined equipment on it and everything. It was just fantastic for a kid.
I remember reading your story, and I think if I remember right, you said you were disappointed you didn't get to eat breakfast or didn't get to eat any meal because the dining car was open.
Yes, it was. Oh, geez, you did read my story.
Yeah, yes.
Now, this shot is August 1st, 1963. This is when the Phoebe Snow was re-inaugurated, where they put the Tavern Lounge back on a train and actually gave the train the name the Phoebe Snow again. This is at Blairstown. This is my brother's photograph. He was working as the ticket agent here for about two months. And it was a clear day in Dover when I took the photograph, but by the time it got up here to Blairstown, it was pouring rain out.
I actually remember that because I was a little kid in South Orange, and I remember it was the day that the Phoebe Snow came back, and it was a nice day out by because my house was right next to the railroad. So you're right. At least at east of this, it was a nice day. At least I remember. I don't remember it raining. So it's interesting that it would have been like a cloud burst or something.
Really. And here's the rear end going by. It was a nice train. It really looked nice. The sleeper is in a different location at this particular time. It used to be between the Tavern Lounge and the diner. And on this particular day, the sleeper was on this end.
And those Tavern Lounge cars still are in existence. Metro North still uses them in their.
Yeah, hopefully somebody will save them.
Yes, absolutely.
You got my contribution. That's the inside of Blairstown Station. I couldn't find the other one. My brother took a picture of me acting like a ticket agent in there behind the cage. You could see the ticket case and everything when I was inside there, but I can't find a negative, so I wasn't able to put it in this show.
Yeah, this is there's still passenger service at this point, I take it?
Yeah, sure was. This is 1963 or
okay.
64. What happened was I talked to Andy Barbera. I don't know if anybody you guys know him. He was an engineer for the EL, and he was on number 1, the Phoebe Snow. And I talked to him one day, and I said, "I want to go see my brother up in Blairstown. Can I ride up in the cab with you?" And he said, "Sure, come on up tomorrow." So it was summertime, so I did. Rode up in the cab with him to Blairstown, and I brought my baseball mitt and baseball bat and baseball, of course. And my brother and I were pitching back and forth between the two doors. There's a door over here and a door over here in the baggage room. And we were just throwing the ball back and forth in there. There's Blairstown Freight House. And this is an eastbound in 1974 or 1975 going by Blairstown. U33C and an F3B and an F7B. And this, I don't know what happened here. I can't remember the whole circumstances. That's my wife, by the way, leaning out of the cab there. We met the train at Portland, and they said, "Come on, I'll give her a ride." So she rode all the way to Port Morris, and that's where I picked her up. But this is an empty coal train coming out of Mecco, and I don't know where these cars were going, because normally it would go westbound.
So your wife got the cab ride and you didn't?
Well, yeah, she couldn't figure out how to get to Blairstown, so I said, "Go ahead, you ride."
What was her, if you remember, what was her impression of, that's,
Oh, you couldn't wipe the smile off her face after she got off the train. She thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
really?
Well, I guess we know where that is. That's Haynesburg. Skill Viaduct. This was November 27th, 1966, the last day that Phoebe Snow ran. And Artie Erdman and I were on a road trip here. This is when I was trying to qualify out here as a dispatcher. And while we were driving along the roadway here, CS9 came up. So we got a picture of him there. And another train eastbound. This is Santa Fe 100 on January 31st, 1976. This one's out of focus, but I put it in here because it's this is actual loads of coal. This was going to Hoboken. This is what they use for the steam boilers that heated the switches and everything in the wintertime, and the station and the towers too. So they'd bring this coal down on this train here.
Was that a CNW unit, the second one there?
Yes, it was. It was a leaser at the time. The CNW was marked out of it, but it was leased. Conrail leased about a dozen units or so, GP30s and some other units from CNW. And this is out at what do you call that here? I can't think of the name of that road here. Wait a second.
Stark Road.
Yeah, that's it. Stark Road, Columbia, New Jersey. This would be HB1. And this is a John Riley photograph. This is not the Phoebe Snow coming eastbound. I'm guessing it might possibly be the Pocono Express. It looks like that's a nickel plate baggage car, and that was a common occurrence on the Pocono Express at the time. This is from 1960 also, before the merger. Now this is the last Phoebe Snow. This is the first section of the last Phoebe Snow. It had 7 cars. This was a diner back here, or a parlor diner, 2998 or something, I think it was. 3 coaches, 2998, 2 more coaches, and business car 300. That was William White's car. He was riding this section to Scranton. And you can see the D&H car here. And there's the parlor diner. These were the ones that the Erie used out in Cleveland on the, what the heck did they call that train? The Steel King. And here's the last Phoebe coming. This was the darkest day for me. I really felt really bad when that train went by for the last time. Got my brother in that photograph, but at least I got the train. That sign was up there for years. I don't know if that's still up there.
Now that made it into the 80s, but and I don't think it was a different sign, but no, there's no sign there anymore. Billboard.
And this will give you an idea of what the CTC machine looked like at Slateford, West Slateford, coming off from UN here. And this is controlled by Stroudsburg Tower. This is Bell's Bridge into that paper company that was up there. And this is the beginning of the double track. Stroudsburg would be in here. This is going to Antelope. This would be track 3. Whoops, excuse me. Let me get back here. This would be track 3. This would be track 1, track 2. Juice, I did it again. and this would be track 4. This was after Conrail.
This was this in it's still in the tower at that point?
Oh yeah, it was still in the tower. Here you can see the message 9/27/1978. So this is just before the end. GTD was George Daly. He was the general manager, Penn Central guy.
But correct me if I'm, wait a minute, but Slateford Tower was out of commission since like 1950 or so.
Yeah, this is Stroudsburg Tower though.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stroudsburg. Okay, I'm hearing, okay, never mind. Never mind.
Okay, Slateford Junction, and this was probably the Merchants Limited train 26, F3A, BA. This is the old road, main track, and this is the siding going down to Portland. Used to be a turntable that sat right about here. I guess you guys know all this stuff.
Yeah, that went out early. I'd say probably somewhere in the 1920s. It was only there for a short period of time. I think it was only like a 60-foot or so.
Yeah, it was very short.
I think you can still see a part of the outline today even. I think it's a little bit, is it a little bit closer to where the bridge is there, Chuck? It's a right,
Well, it's
someone
right,
pointed it out to us.
right
It
here.
was right next to the, well, there's a bridge there in this photo, but of course now it's a filled in, road. But yeah, it was literally right up against the where the bridge was.
And this is November 27th, 1966. This was after Phoebe went by. This came eastbound. Should have been New York 98. And this is Santa Fe 100, delivering coal down to Portland to Mecco. Same train that I caught on Haynesburg.
Were there a lot of people out chasing this train this day, or is?
Well, I know me and my brother and Bob Bars were out here, but I saw a couple other people, not too many, maybe 3 or 4 other people.
If the internet existed back then, there would have been
Would
scores
have been
of
100. There would have been 100 people out there. And this is New York 100 here in around 74, 75. SDP 45 and an SD 45-2. And this is after Conrail. ELSD P45 and a Century 628 on the Lehigh Valley. Slateford Junction. This is at Delaware Water Gap. This was TC4 again. You can see the high cube box cars here. And this was a New York 98, right at the curve here for Delaware Water Gap.
What's going on there? What's that cloud of something?
The lead unit was blowing oil.
Oh, okay.
Just a little bit. This is from the Tavern Lounge on Phoebe Snow, and this would either be December of 65 or January of 66. On every school vacation I had went from about the time I was 13 or 14, I'd save up my money and make a trip up to Scranton to go see the railroads up there. And this is at Bell's Bridge. Bell's Bridge is just around down this S curve down here. This is an eastbound freight that was waiting for us to go get through with the single track. We are westbound, and that's a Railfans Corvair there. And this is going to Copper's Coke, if you notice these old containers here. Copper's Cove when it used to be located just west of West End Tower by the Hackensack River. Same train again. And this is Gravel Place. This is Santa Fe 100 again. And this is Conrail. This was a, what the heck was it? FM4 and a BH something or other. BH4, I think, was the other one. Combination train. Stroudsburg, eastbound freight. This is not mine. I don't know who took this photograph. This is not my photo either. This is a train going to the Portland Summit going to Portland, Pennsylvania for Mecco. 5 Jeeps on it. He's coming in off a 4-track, crossing over onto, no, he's not. Then I take that back. He's just on 2. And this is way before the merger. And there's something else I got off the internet. I don't know who took this photograph either. An H2466 Trainmaster and an FTA and B. This is the guy that's crossing over from 4-track to 2-track to go eastbound. This was a deadhead business car train going back to Scranton. Let's see, it was in June of 71. The engineer's name on here was Paul Bohr, and this conductor on here was Frank Ehrenhoffler. Just going with deadhead equipment. There was nobody on the train. I thought this would be interesting for everybody to see. VW pickup truck with a high rail.
That's a Jeep cab over. That's cool.
Oh, this is a Jeep?
Yep.
Wow.
I'll send you some info on them.
And this is from the tail end of the Phoebe Snow again, and this is track 3 right here at Analomink. The signal was controlled by the operator at Stroudsburg Tower, but this was a spring switch here. So as soon as we cleared the switch and we got to the next block, he'd get an approach to come out here. This is 2, let's see, an F3 and an F7 and 2 FB units here. And this is in 1970, May of 1970, 759 trip at Analomink.
This area was devastated during the 55 flood.
Yeah, you can see where it's, oops, sorry about that. You can see where this has been all cleared and riprap has been filled in here right after the flood. I've got the photographs of the flooded area with some trains sitting here all derailed and from the flood in 55. And this is another Portland Summit going to Portland, Mecco, coming eastbound. And now there's the finally the end. And that's it, guys.
That was amazing. I was looking forward to that all week. I wasn't disappointed. That you have great material there.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions at this point, we'll do a little Q&A if anybody,
Well, let me answer the question about the two viaducts. I think that was the question about the cost.
yeah, from Edward Holder. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but is Amtrak planning on fixing both of the viaducts?
Yes. Now, there was a study that was done by Greenman Peterson, released at the end of 2019, that was done by the Monroe County, well, not Monroe County, was the Pennsylvania Northeast Regional Railroad Authority back in those days. And under a different set of circumstances, but one of the things they did was look at the cost of rehabilitation of the two viaducts. The Pauline School Viaduct at that point was estimated to need $16 million worth of work, and the Delaware River Viaduct 54, so a total of 70. So you can maybe add inflation to that, but that was the estimate, whatever that would be now, 4 years ago, at that point. But it's, yeah, sure. But the plan is that both will be rehabilitated.
Eric Buselli says, fantastic job, Rich. Thanks for sharing this with us. Austin, do we have any comments from the YouTube the YouTube simulcast to this, or?
No questions or comments from there. We had about 12 watchers on there throughout the presentation. So
And we recorded this, so this will be available if people want to chime in whenever they want after tonight's presentation is over.
Yeah, Rich, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, Lisa said this was spectacular. Rich, thank you so much. So, yeah, this was amazing. Some awesome photos. The whole cutoff. Rich, I might email you. There's the photo of the inside of Blairstown. Would it be possible to get a copy of that maybe at some point?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, because for Greendell, for our restoration, we're looking for interior shots of photos of stations along the cutoff. So you have a nice one there of the inside of Blairstown.
I'll see if I can find the other one that shows the inside of the ticket office with me there too.
That would be great if you could. We have a question here from Amin Ghanem. Great presentation. Can Rich explain how traffic was split between the Delaware Division and the cutoff?
Well, after the merger, around 1963, when they closed Port Marsh Yard, basically everything shifted over to the Erie side from Binghamton all the way down through Port Jervis and into Croxton. And that's also coincided with Route 80 being built down in Patterson when they eliminated the boot line and it swung over onto the main line. In 1974, they started rerouting things over the Lackawanna side, and the Erie side was down to about 2 or 3 trains in each direction for the duration till the Conrail, and the rest of the freight ran via Scranton.
And Rich, I actually had a question. The U-34CHs, were they did they ever run the cutoff on freight trains? Because I had heard they ran on freight service on weekends.
I've got pictures of them on the Erie side, but I don't have any pictures of them on the cutoff. I don't know if
Yeah,
they
they
ever
did.
did or not.
They did. I got some pictures I could, that I actually seen it, and I didn't run any, but they did run I got a shot at Great Notch heading west and a few others through Little Falls and west of there that other people have taken, John Snogans. And they did, not too often, but they did run them on the cutoff.
And they had to get them back for Monday morning for the commute.
Yeah, until, NJ DOT caught wind of it and they put the kibosh to all that stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you see a U-34CH just dead in consist going to Scranton for wheel work or something like that, or a 90-day inspection.
Say, Sam, did they make as much noise on the freight trains as they did on the commuters?
Yeah, well, that was the FDL 17. They were like little choppers, no matter what. U-25s right on up to U-36, they all have that distinct sound, loaded up, whether it's freight or passenger. Because, the U-34s, they were run up in Rev 8 anyhow for the HEP. So, but starting out, they would, make that chopping sound. But yeah, I mean, up and down as far as the cutoff goes. I mean, I remember coming out of Scranton East with U-25s, and you should hear that going up to Renee. Like, oh my God, the doors were rattling, my ears were going deaf. But yeah, those GEs made a lot of noise. Yes.
They call that crackling the way they were.
Well, if we don't have any additional questions, I guess we'll wrap it up. I know you're on a time difference out there, so it's almost dinner time probably out by in Arizona at this point. So yeah, thanks for everyone for showing up, and if any questions pop up on the YouTube portion since we recorded it, I'll send them your way, and I could always answer it on the in the comment section. Rich, great presentation. It was awesome. And again, thank you for giving your presentation. Chuck, I guess that's about it for our March meeting.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending.
And
Good night, everyone.
thank you again, Rich. And we'll see everyone on the Facebook page, and we'll have an open house in June if hopefully the weather holds out and it's a little bit warmer by then. So okay. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Chuck, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Keith.